So, we're going to talk about the respiratory system and respirations. Respirations, if you hear that, is just talking about breathing. You remember that you inhale, in, exhale, exit. So, we're going to be identifying the parts of the respiratory system, distinguishing between respiratory movements, thinking about how your chest moves up and down, and thinking about the why. And then being able to level the respiratory system and being able to differentiate, tell the difference between inhalations and exhalation movements.
In order to stay alive, the body has to breathe air. We breathe in oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide. This process is known as respiration. Breathing happens automatically. Every day, the body breathes about 20,000 times. By the time we reach 70 years old, that's about 600 million breaths. All of this breathing occurs because of the respiratory system, which includes the nose, throat, voice box, windpipe, and lungs. At the top of the respiratory system, the nostrils bring air into the nose, where it's filtered, warmed, and moistened. Tiny hairs called cilia protect the nasal passageways and other parts of the respiratory tract and filter out dust and other particles that enter the nose through the breathed air. Air can also be breathed in through the mouth. The two airways of the nose and mouth meet up at the pharynx, which is located at the back of the throat. The pharynx carries both food and air and is used for digestion and respiration. One path is for food. This is called the esophagus, which leads on to the stomach. The other side is for air. It's called the trachea. A small flap of tissue, called the epiglottis, covers the air-only passage when we swallow. This stops food and liquid from going into the lungs. The larynx, or voice box, is located at the top of the trachea, the air-only pipe. This is where our vocal cords are. The trachea, or windpipe, which is a 2 to 3 centimetre tube, then extends downwards from the bottom of the larynx for about 12 centimetres. The walls of the windpipe are made strong by stiff rings of cartilage that keep it open. The trachea is also lined with tiny hairs. They sweep foreign particles and fluids out of the airway, keeping them from entering the lungs. The windpipe divides into 2 branches, and each one of these enters one of the 2 lungs of the body. Each branch resembles the limbs of a tree, dividing into smaller, finer branches called bronchioles. The bronchioles end in tiny air sacs called alveoli, which look a bit like grapes. These structures enable fresh air to get to the air sacs, which are surrounded by tiny blood vessels, or capillaries. The oxygen passes through these air sacs and travels through the capillary walls into the bloodstream. At the same time, carbon dioxide transfers from the bloodstream into the air sacs, where it gets breathed out of the body. When we exercise, the body needs more oxygen to feed the muscles as they work harder. The body responds by breathing more quickly and deeply. As the cells of the muscles use up more oxygen, the lungs have to work harder to keep up the supply. The respiratory system then speeds up to supply the body with much needed oxygen, and also to get rid of the carbon dioxide waste in the system. Over time, exercising also helps our chest cavity to get bigger, which enables the body to increase the amount of air it takes in. More capillaries form around the air sacs, so the body gets better at swapping oxygen and carbon dioxide gases. We can see how the body's respiratory system helps the body to move about, and is influenced by regular and ongoing physical activity as well.
Okay, so I give you a lot of information within the video on the respiratory system. So knowing that the main organ is the lungs, but knowing that the lungs do not just hold air like that, the oxygen actually goes into your bloodstream. So the respiratory system is responsible for the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide in your body. We breathe in oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. So close your mouth and pinch your nose. Can you stay like that for a long time without breathing? Could you stay like that forever? No, because the cells in your body need oxygen to survive. If you were to hold your breath, eventually you would pass out and then die. That happens because your systems start to shut down because the cells that make them up are not getting oxygen and the carbon dioxide is not being removed. So this short little poem, day and night, man breathes. He exchanges air with the environment. Keyword environment. So this clue goes into thinking back to ecosystems. What in our environment do we exchange air with? We know we breathe in air and exhale carbon dioxide. Well, producers like trees and other plants take in carbon dioxide so that they can produce and make their own food through photosynthesis, and they give off air. So in a way, we need each other. And a lot of the time, that's why they say fresh air is out where lots of vegetation and plants are versus a city where less trees are in that environment. So next we're asking, what are the stages of respiration? Remember, respiration is breathing. Why do we breathe? Let's discover the respiratory system and respiration. So when we look closely, what do you notice about these two pictures? Okay, one of the main things you should see is what is included in the respiratory system. So we have all the way starting in your mouth, goes down through your trachea and into your lungs. Your rib cage, that connection back to the skeletal system, is protecting your lungs. And then this red line is a muscle called your diaphragm, and it helps you be able to breathe and inhale and exhale. Why do the lungs look so much smaller in this picture than in this one? So when we look at this, oh no, accidents. When we look at these two pictures, when you breathe in, take a deep breath for me. So really think about what happens. When you breathe in, your chest swells, so your lungs are expanding. Your diaphragm drops down so that your lungs have room to expand. That muscle drops lower. It relaxes so that your chest has room, your lungs have room to expand and fill with air. So the lungs would be bigger. When you exhale in breathing out, your chest goes back down. Your lungs are smaller because the pressure and that force from your chest coming down and your diaphragm going back up, it's contracting, it's pushing on your lungs, making them smaller so that you can exhale. So while breathing, air enters your body, but where does it go? Where is our respiratory system located, and what is it made of? So, the main organ within the respiratory system is your lungs, but it is not the only organ. And all these organs work together to make up your respiratory system. They all must work together in order for your respiratory system to live and get the nourishment and the oxygen and removal of the carbon dioxide from all the other cells in your body. So, first, you take in the air through your nose and mouth, so when you breathe in. Then, it moves down through your trachea, or windpipe, and then it goes into your lungs. Now, what makes up within the lungs is your bronchus. They kind of look like trees within there. So, comes into two tubes, the bronchus. Off those, you kind of think of them as tree branches, are your bronchioles. So the air travels all the way down through these. At the ends, you could think of them as almost leaves or fruit, or the alveoli. These are where the actual little tiny air sacs are. And that is where oxygen is exchanged with carbon dioxide. And tiny little capillaries, tiny blood vessels attach to these alveoli, those air sacs, so that oxygen can enter your bloodstream and get to the rest of your body. Your blood is how, through those vessels, are how everything is transported. It's like the roads inside your body. If you're wanting it to get somewhere, think about how we breathe in. Air doesn't just stay in our lungs like a balloon. The trick is to get it to all the cells in your body. So if you think about it, I have cells all the way down in my big toe. How is oxygen getting to my big toe? Well, it's going to get there by traveling through our blood vessels. So through these little alveoli, those tiny little blood vessels called capillaries, the exchange is there. Oxygen is dropped off and carbon dioxide waste is dropped into the alveoli, and then you exhale and breathe it out. The ribs, they're just not across it, are responsible for protecting your lungs. And then your diaphragm is the muscle that contracts and relaxes to help that inhaling and exhaling respiration. So the respiratory system consists of several parts: the nose, the mouth, trachea, bronchi, and lungs. By breathing, fresh air enters the lungs and impure air is out. So impure air is carbon dioxide. Fresh air is oxygen. So put your hands on your chest while breathing. You feel respiratory movements or respiratory movements. What causes these respiratory movements? So when air comes in your lungs, when air comes in, you can take a deep breath and you can see and feel your chest expand and your chest rises up. Your diaphragm, that muscle underneath, relaxes and it drops down so that your lungs can expand. This is a side view. From your trachea in, lung comes in, your diaphragm drops down so your lungs can expand and your chest rises. When you exhale, your chest goes down, it gets tight, comes down, and your diaphragm contracts and lifts up. So you got a lot of pressure between your chest pushing down and your trachea pushing up to force that air up and out when you exhale. From the side view, you can see you're going to be exhaling, the chest comes down, and the diaphragm contracts and pulls up, and that's a lot of pressure on your lungs so that you are able to exhale. So looking at respiratory movement, each respiratory movement consists of an inhalation and an exhalation. Inhalation, air enters through your nose and fills your lungs. You can feel your chest swell and move out. Your lungs fill with air, your diaphragm relaxes and moves down. Exhalation, air exits, so exit your lungs. You feel your chest deflate. When it deflates, it contracts and moves down. And your diaphragm relaxes and moves up, okay? And then you can feel that tightening and you are able to exhale. So looking at the different pieces of the respiratory system, we have our nose, our nasal cavity, our trachea, our lungs, our bronchus, our diaphragm, and nothing, I believe that's supposed to be the alveoli. So let's look at matching the following instructions. When you inhale, you can even resort back to this picture here. You have a contracted diaphragm. Exhale, you have a relaxed diaphragm. You have dilated lungs and compressed lungs. Let's see if I was correct. So exhale, diaphragm relaxes and chest contracts. Yeah, this one's inhale, dilated means bigger, compressed, they're tight. So these two. So dilated lungs means getting bigger, expanding. So that's when it inhales and your diaphragm is contracted. Compressed lungs are when you exhale, they're tight, pushed in, and you have a relaxed diaphragm. That is all for the respiratory.